Okay, all right then. Yeah, we should be live right now.
Oh, cool.
How does it look? Can we just double check how that looks for our followers? Hi Rachel, good to see you. We're just getting everything set up. We're using the laptop for the first time. So we're just wanting to make sure. Yeah, perfect. You can see us all properly, can't you? Wonderful. All right then. Yeah, so the format of today is going to be more like I suppose like a live podcast, so you can hear us talking about our own experiences. We're definitely going to make time at the end of the podcast for a Q&A. So if you have any questions, please hold on, and you can always ask them at the end. Don't worry if we don't reply to your comments like in this moment. Please just, when you see us, turn back to the camera, ask away, and we'll do our best to get through it as much as we can. But yeah, hot summer's day today, isn't it, to get started?
Absolutely.
Okay, so I guess the reason that we're looking to talk about things today is eating disorders, isn't it? That's the main topic that we want to talk
And
about.
actually, coincidentally, I saw this morning that there was a new paper, and I think it was one of the OCD pages we thought on Instagram published about like the overlap between body disorder and OCD, and how there's a very strong like correlation between the two.
Yeah, I can believe it 100%, because I think, I mean, talking about one thing I did want to speak about today is perfectionism, and how, for me personally, I think that was a big part of my eating disorder behaviours, really, and I think that's something I'll get into maybe a bit later on, because we're going to talk more, aren't we, about the crossover.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, we'll probably just go through our experiences and then some common ground, and definitely the overlap into. Oh, someone's just said the sound is super low.
Oh no, that's a shame. Thank you for telling us. All right, then let's see if we can bring. Let me see if I can bring the laptop a bit closer. Is that any better? Thank you for letting us know, by the way. It might hold off, you know. Yeah, go on then. Thanks for letting us know. We're going to put some mics on, actually, so that you can hear us a bit more. Oh, hi, Natasha. Good to see you. Okay, we're going to put some mics on. Hopefully that will help. It is the closer you are to the speaker. Okay, so, right, we're just going to put these mics on. Let's see if this helps. Thank you for letting us know. Okay, right, we've got our mics. Can you hear us any better? Should be just changing over right now. Fingers crossed you can hear us a bit better. Okay, we're going to carry on.
Hopefully, I'll keep an eye out.
Yeah, we're going to carry on, but yeah, please let us know if there's still any issues. That's perfect. Amazing.
Cool.
Yeah, so let's get started. I know, of course, we were looking to talk about both of us really in our own experiences of eating disorders. Why don't you start?
God, where to start? God, I don't know. I know I had some sort of like notes on this, but I think the biggest one was, given that Easter's just been and gone, I know we had this idea to do this podcast and stuff, and I think I was reflecting on, God, that was just the worst time for me when I was in the thick of it. Anything sort of like holiday related.
Yeah, it's like I know this pressure's coming, or I know that I'm going to be tempted, or...
Either that or there's just such an emphasis on food, like you go in a supermarket, and like at the time it was like lockdown as well, so you didn't really have anything else to do other than to go to the supermarket.
That was the one
for
thing that was
something
open.
to do, yeah. It's like when you're there, it's like, look at all this food, like, Easter eggs, you should be having this, and then it's Christmas, like, oh, you should be having this, like summer, like you should be having a barbecue and stuff, and you're just trying to like stay above water a bit. So yeah, that was really difficult.
And I think that's hard regardless of what your subtype, like the kind of eating disorder is that you have. I think if you're struggling with restriction, then of course it's going to be really tricky being around all of this stuff all the time. Similarly, if you're struggling with, I was always more of a binge eater and bulimic, where I would make myself sick afterwards. I think that for me personally, when you would get given large quantities of Easter eggs, for example, that would feel almost like a free pass, like, hey, you know, what else
permission,
are you going to do?
Yeah, it's like someone else is giving you permission, isn't it? And then it almost feels like rude to like turn it down, I guess. That was what it was like for me anyway. I feel like, oh, I'm doing something wrong for turning it down, or I should just be able to enjoy this. But yeah, especially around like holidays and, you know, whether it's like Christmas or Easter or New Year's, you know, there's just such an emphasis on. That's why I always had a problem with you shouldn't like emotionally eat and stuff. It's like food's a really emotional thing.
It is.
You know, like birthday cake. You know what I mean? Like a party, a wedding cake, and like the wedding breakfast,
celebration with wine,
champagne,
and things,
all that sort of stuff. Like Christmas dinner. Do you know what I mean? Like food is such an emotional thing, and I think it's nice that it is as well.
Yeah.
But when you're struggling with an eating disorder, it makes it really hard to access that side of things, and it just becomes very one-sided, like, oh my God, like I'm finding this really difficult right now.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think this is something, I mean, I'm glad that you're here, it's your podcast, but like, I'm glad that we have Andy here, you here, talking about the male side of things, because I do think that is really, really underrepresented in our society. I think we know a lot about what's the word, like the stigma really for eating disorders is, oh, teenage girl, anorexic. And I don't think we often hear about what it's like to be a man and to go through an eating disorder.
I don't actually meet that many others as well, if I'm being honest. And I think sometimes as well it can be almost glorified, especially in sort of like heavy like diet culture, because there's a pressure for not just for men. Yeah, well, I mean, not just for men, but for everyone. But yeah, to like look a certain way. And it's hard as well. I remember this is one of the things I wanted to talk about. It's hard as well because I used to be actually quite overweight. And then I lost weight very quickly. And the most praise or recognition or attention that I ever got in my life is when I was losing and then lost the weight. And that became an addiction of like, because it was like around lockdown as well, you wouldn't really see anyone for ages, and then you'd come back and you'd be like, yeah, like I've lost all this weight, and it's like, oh my God, like you've lost all this, you know, and that was like a...
But then little did people know, obviously, the way that you were doing that and that it wasn't done in a healthy way at all. I think it's quite sad because I think it is something that does get celebrated in society, isn't it? Unfortunately. Which is what can keep a lot of people stuck. They get a lot of self-worth from compliments that they can get from people whilst they're literally in the thick of an eating disorder. It's sad.
definitely, and it's like you get the thing that you want so much, i.e. praise, recognition, attention, worth, but then you're almost like killing yourself to get there as well.
100%.
And you know, in private you don't feel very worthy, you know, you actually feel pretty bad about yourself.
And it never feels enough. I think this is something that will come up for me a lot. I would sometimes fall into restriction. I wouldn't say that was my main experience of an eating disorder, but I know when I did fall into it, it would never feel enough. I'm not going to say the numbers, but I would go down and I'd be like, right, just a bit more. And it would never, I'm going to say it, I think what I now know to be from my anxiety work and my OCD work, I guess that critical voice part of me, that is the perfectionist part that always thinks, well, you're not good enough because of this and this, grades, the way that you look, friends, blah, 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 blah. That critical voice can never, in my experience, can never be satiated. And I think that's definitely something I see, like when I used to work at the private eating disorder service. But you know, seeing lots and lots of clients who, that isn't the answer, you know, to how you're feeling inside. You're not going to feel good enough by hitting a certain number because those goalposts always move. Did you find that?
That was one of the things that I definitely fueled it. And I know you mentioned about perfectionism before, but for me, it became very goal orientated and like almost like a weird sick game that I had with myself, in that I had to see the scale go down every single day. Every single day. And if I didn't, like, that day was a bad day. You know, you'd see it on certain tracking apps, like I wanted it to go like that all the time.
And with that, I suppose, I know we're going to get onto this in a bit, but what's coming up for me is that kind of just right OCD. It needs to be just right, perfect. Absolutely. The kind of people who like things lined up in a certain way, and if it's a bit off, it's not good enough. And is that what it felt like?
And as well, just thinking and trying to relate it to the OCD stuff as well, almost not, I don't know if contamination would be the right thing, but you know, it had to be completely clean, you know, on brand, like diet food, you know what I mean? I couldn't have this sense of balance. It was very all or nothing. I couldn't eat X amount of calories a day, still be well in my deficit, and then be like, oh yeah, I'll just have some little, because I can fit it in if I wanted to. Absolutely not. Like, that was not even a question.
Yeah, the rules are very strict, which again, OCD, that overlay is so important, that the strictness is like, you must do X, Y, Z, and you feel compelled and compulsed to do all of those things.
Yeah, definitely. And I think as well, one thing, as we're talking about it, that is coming up for me is, I knew it was bad when I was doing it. If I was making myself sick, if I was binging, if I was restricting, I knew it was bad, but I just didn't stop doing it.
Yeah, I personally would go further, that I had normalised it. I was like, this is just what I do. I just eat and I be sick, and this is part of my life. And I had done it for so many years, which is so dangerous. I had just normalised that. And again, I know I keep coming back to OCD, but we do normalise our behaviours. We normalise checking the door 20 times. That's just what Ferne does.
It's just my OCD. You know what I mean? You see that a lot, don't
we? We normalise it. We so normalise it. And I think, talking about this now, I think it's really important to recognise that if anyone does normalise their eating disorder behaviours, just because you've stopped feeling bad about it doesn't mean that it's okay and you should carry on.
Yeah, and it can be very glamorised as well, can't it, as well? And as you were saying then, something that used to stick in my mind was, what was that? Is it that Nickelback song? Like Rockstar, it's like, oh, we'll all stay skinny because we just won't eat. I was like, oh yeah, this is like the cool thing to do.
Yeah,
like, this is just
that's so true.
What people who stay skinny do. You know, this is just part of it. Yeah, it's a pretty dark side of it, but you know what? It's just part of it, isn't it?
100%. And when we grew up, obviously, like 90s, noughties kind of era, that was obviously rife, wasn't it? For all of the, especially if you're thinking like Victoria Beckham and people like that who were really, really super skinny.
Yeah.
Really difficult time. What do you reckon, so in terms of being a man now, in modern day society, what is your sense of the pressure that men have nowadays that maybe they didn't have before?
I feel like it is, actually, you know what? I don't even know if this is right, what I'm about to say. My perception is that even in the last 5 or 6 years, it's gone a lot more relaxed, even just as like I think so, but then on the other hand, you still get quite extreme sides of it. You know, like we talk about when you see people just wearing like baggy, chill clothes and stuff, like I think sometimes it's become a bit cool to not care, I think, as much. So I don't know if there is as much pressure, but then also actually there is a side that does promote that quite a lot, and you know, that very hustle culture, and there's a big push of like self-optimization, you know, and all that sort of stuff, which can be helpful, you know, and that like wellness sphere on social media, which, you know, I am fully aware that we're part of, but I think there can be two really, I think maybe for a long time it was one really loud voice of like, yeah, there was a pressure to people, for people to be a certain way, but now this voice is maybe a bit louder, but this one is still the same, I guess, is what I'm trying to say.
I see what you mean.
That was a very long-winded way of saying it, but I think that pressure is still there, definitely.
And I suppose something that I've been reflecting on when I was thinking about coming along and doing this live was what kept me in my eating disorder for so long, and why did I turn to it so often? And I think something that I wanted to talk about is how I don't think I ever really knew until, again, more recently, and all the OCD stuff, I suppose, I found it really hard to sit with big emotions. I know when I was going through binge eating, a lot of it was about usually a depression and being like, I want to taste, because obviously taste is pleasure and it's happiness. And I know for me, it was all about, let me squash down often loneliness and teenage heartbreak. I always took that really bad. And I would just eat and eat and eat to try to push down and ignore difficult emotions. And I remember my mum, well, the way that she went about my eating disorder, I don't think was great, but I remember her saying to me, Ferne, like, God, you need to stop eating. And I remember bursting out crying and saying, it's the only thing I've got to look forward to. And I think for many people, obviously different mental health diagnoses do overlap. And I think for me, depression and binge eating went hand in hand. But then I think and bulimia, because then I would feel guilty, of course, about what I've eaten. But I think on the flip side with the restriction, I think a lot of it was about trying to get away from my intrusive thoughts. And I used to think, right, well, if I focus on restriction and feeling hungry, then I'm focusing on something else. And that is a distraction from whatever anxiety I had in the moment. And it did numb all of these big emotions. And that is why it became quite an addictive vice. Like people who smoke cigarettes or take drugs, it felt kind of like that. In fact, I can say for a fact, when I stopped engaging in my eating disorder and when I stopped doing that behaviour, and I used to smoke cigs and I stopped doing that as well, that was when the OCD came, because I wasn't using anything else to try to numb or cope with that, which then became obviously its own story in and of itself.
God, that is so true. And the point that you said at the end there as well about, I see this a lot with people, it's using something, any behaviour or compulsion as a way to help yourself, even if you know it's not good and it's actually quite painful and upsetting for yourself, but it's kind of like that, the devil you know is better than, well, there's uncertainty and there's discomfort and there's pain over here.
100%.
This is still horrific and not nice, but at least I know what it is, and there's a sense of comfort that can be found in that. And I think that is what happens quite a lot with maybe the people that we work with. You know, you can become quite comfortable. We always sort of like promote the message of like, you need to get better at being uncomfortable, but on this side, not in the, this really catastrophic, life-altering behaviour that I am engaging in.
Yeah, definitely. I think making change is really hard, and I stress that with my clients. We seem to say that every single morning, don't we, when we have our morning coffees and we talk about our client work. It's like change is really, really, really hard, because often it's about facing what makes us human. It's about facing those big, uncomfortable emotions. And it is really hard, isn't it, to do that?
And you don't really get taught how to do that either, do you? And you know, all too often I think emotions are viewed as like this problem that needs to be solved and fixed. Like, what can I do in the moment, like now, to make myself feel better, rather than can I take a sense of urgency out of this and just let myself feel what I need to feel? But also that's uncomfortable as well, and scary.
It is. And I think when it comes to eating disorders, I did a research paper on this once, like, what has food got to do with it really? Like, not much. Like, that's what it looks like on the outside, but actually what we're dealing with is self-esteem, I think perfectionism, I think struggling to feel big emotions. I think food, that's what it looks like. But I think it's, if you gave someone a diet plan and you was like, go follow that, that wouldn't fix the problem, because it's deeper. There's something else going on.
It's so
inside.
surface level, isn't it?
100%.
I remember thinking that when I first started therapy for my eating disorder, coming out of like my early sessions thinking, I've not even spoken about food. Like, I've not even spoken about food. I've talked about literally everything else but food. I think I mentioned it once in my first session when I was like, I think I've got an eating disorder. And then the rest just kind of fell into place. So it's never really about the food, really, is it? But I think that what you were saying a minute ago about that hit of pleasure, because food can taste really good. You know what I mean? It can taste really good, and if that's all you've got to look forward to, and you know, not to get all like, you know, big sugar about it, but like, if some foods are manufactured literally to be addictive, and it's like, you know, you're getting that dopamine release really quickly. it's no wonder it can feel like an addiction, can't it?
Definitely. I just glanced over because I know something that I think it would be good for us to talk about is, I know you said you recovered from your eating disorder whilst being a chef.
Yeah.
You had to face your fear over and over and over again at work, didn't you? What was that like?
Yeah. Hell. Very, very difficult. I think it's what helps now in my client work when people are saying like, oh, but it's so hard. I'm like, yeah, I know. Like, or sound like old man, like back in my day, like we recovered from an eating disorder as a chef. Like that's how hard we had it. But it was rough. Yeah. It was rough. Like I think I compared it to, you know, a recovering alcoholic working at a vineyard or, and again with other presentations of, you know, take out the food, you can replace it with other unhelpful behaviours. Food is such a tricky one because realistically, I could never have a glass of wine again and be okay. I could never have another beer again and be okay. I would live, I'd be all right. If I was a drug addict, I could, you know, someone could force me to never have.
You could cut it out.
Yeah,
completely.
You could cut it out because someone could take that power away from it, lock me in a room and I would be okay.
Yeah.
You have to eat.
You do.
Like you have to eat.
You have to face that fear. If you think about it as an exposure, there's no way out really. You have to face that fear at least 3 times a day and a couple of snacks. That's what, like 5, 6 times a day often. You have to show up and you have to face that over and over again, which is daunting when you're in it. But then if you think about the recovery side of things, it's like, wow, I've actually got loads of opportunities here in my day to try and do something else.
That's a tough sell though.
Oh,
that's a very tough sell in the moment, isn't it? But when you start to come out the other side of it, it's like, yeah, okay, now that shift is... I think because it knocks that trust in yourself so much. And I see that a lot with, you know, anxiety and OCD clients. It's like, oh, I've lost trust in myself. And it's like, yeah, of course, that makes sense. But when you start to build that sense of self and trust back up in yourself, then it does get easier. But,
all too many times I've heard, you know, and it's like this, it's such a crossover with the OCD because, you know, you'll hear maybe people who struggle with binge eating who might say, oh, you know, I can't help it. If those biscuits are there, I'm gonna get them and I'm gonna eat them. And that's no different from someone saying, if Reddit or Google is there, I'm gonna get it. And all of it is about escaping sometimes boredom or fear or whatever the emotion is. It is about training that part of you to not give in to something that you've maybe done your whole entire life. Maybe your parents have been binge eaters and their parents, and you know, you're unlearning a lifetime, probably generations usually with eating disorders of unhelpful behaviours.
Definitely. Yeah, you see that a lot, don't you? Like previous generations sort of passing that message on to you in that like food's important. Yeah.
Definitely. I think it could be good for us on that line, I suppose, to talk about compulsions, but from an eating disorder point of view. I know one thing in particular that I used to really struggle with was checking, which is only the same as when we do checking with OCD, like checking the door, etc., etc. I know for me, I would do a lot of checking in any reflective surface. I'd be like, how do I look? I'd look in the TV, I'd look in a car, I'd look in the mirror, I'd look on my phone. I'd always be like, but how do I look? How do I look?
Yeah.
What's my face like? I bet if I was to count the amount of times I would check, I even want to say like 500 times a day. Like, and every time you do that, obviously it's telling yourself your body image is the most important thing in the world. And we need to, obviously this is how recovery works, but it's like taking it down off that pedestal. If I weren't checking that, it would be I'm on the scales, I'm checking my weight, I'm checking what I've eaten, it would just be trying on clothes over and over again. Does this fit? Does it not? It's all consuming.
It is. Yeah, it transcends so much more than just food, and it just like infiltrates every area of your life. And yeah, the checking one, the mirrors thing especially, it can just become so automatic, can't it? You don't even realise that you're doing it. Do you remember when you pulled me for it? I think we were out for a coffee.
No, I don't remember.
Do you remember? Like dead early on, and like obviously you hadn't knowing what I'd gone through, and I think we were in like a coffee shop in Manchester, and I didn't even realise I was doing it, but I stood up and I just like checked myself, and I remember you like pulling me on it. I was like, oh my God, yeah, like
that does ring a bell.
Do you remember?
Actually, now that you said it. Yeah,
like, oh my God, I do this like all the time.
Yeah, it's a habit.
It's such an easy habit.
And they're difficult to break, aren't they, these habits? Taking photos, like progress, I know that has been something for you, hasn't it? And maybe a male thing, I don't know, but what do you think?
And it's hard as well because, and it's like the messages you take on, and again, like, yes, some of them, but a lot of these behaviours like aren't bad, like in isolation. Like when I was really, I look after myself now, I still go to the gym, but there was a time for me where like when I got into fitness, you know, I'd watch loads of people on YouTube and fitness influencers and stuff like that, and recording your progress was just the norm, like taking pictures or videos of like, okay, physique updates and all that sort of stuff. That was just the norm. But then when you throw an OCD brain into it, and it's like, yeah, you're taking 100 pictures a day.
Yeah, exactly.
In different lighting, like, oh, can I see that yet? Can I see that? And tying into the just right stuff. I'm not satisfied with one that I've got yet. I need to...
I'm going to go and go. I'm going to spend 3 hours trying to get the perfect picture.
Oh my God, yeah. The amount of times, and it would like have a knock-on effect. Like, I told myself I was going to go on a walk. It's been like 45 minutes and I've still got...
And I'm stuck here trying to get this picture.
Still not got the right picture. Does this one look better than yesterday?
Yeah.
No, right, better do a plank or some more sit-ups to try and make my abs look more defined so it looks better than yesterday, so then I've got that progress.
And that's where the obsession comes in, isn't it? It's like, it feels urgent, I need to do it now, it needs to be perfect. I know that we've written here about like the gym every single day. It's like, even if you're poorly, it's like, no, I need to do this thing every single day, like no days off. It's awful. And I know for me, I think it's important to talk about, I think, like what helped us to get better. I know for me, it got to a point, I mean, there was a couple of things that helped me get better. But I think for me, first of all, I realised with the bulimia in particular, this isn't working. Like, the goal was to be happy with how I looked.
Oh my God, isn't it? Like, whenever I would make myself sick, I'd be like, I look like crap. My face is all swollen. My stomach looks watery.
Yeah, you retain 80% of the calories you eat anyway, and it's even just like, if you be sick.
Yeah, this method isn't even working. But sorry.
It's not. No, you're right. It's not working. Like, what I'm doing isn't working. I know that was something that made me be like, well, you know, what am I doing? But I think for me, it was the shame around it, and I was like. It's so ironic because I was like, well, I want to look better, but yet here I am damaging my teeth with keep being sick. My face looks really puffy. My breath probably smelled like sick all the time. I think that's like the nitty-gritty side of eating disorders, isn't it? My toilet, I had to keep cleaning the toilet from being sick all the time. It was just... It's no way of life. I remember one of the most shameful things that I did, and I was like, this can't carry on. I remember I went for a drive with Pig and Tasha. I went for a drive with my friend, and we had a milkshake, and I remember she went to fill up her car, and as she was filling up her car, I sipped up the milkshake secretly back into the cup, and then I was like, oh, I'm just putting my cup in the bin, like in her car, and I just did it in the car into the cup, and then put the cup in the bin, and I was just like, that isn't normal. And I think when it really became so sneaky and secretive, I was like, whoa, this isn't good. And I remember, going to a toilet and being sick, and Aurora, your little girl, saying, oh, have you been sick? Are you okay? And I was like, this has to stop. And that was the final thing that made me be like, this ends now. And it did. And I've never looked back. And I'm so glad that I never looked back.
God, the covering your tracks thing is like, for me, was one of the most stressful things about it. And especially with Aurora as well, like at that time, like single parent in lockdown, trying to hide that from her as well. That was really difficult.
Yeah, they're so sneaky, eating disorders, aren't they?
I remember I think when I hit my low point was, again, when I was still a chef. Because I had to prepare stuff to serve to people, I prepared like this like full tray of like this dessert mix, ate pretty much the entire thing, went upstairs to the toilet, got rid of it. Do you know what I mean? And then I was like, I've got to make that again. Like, I need that for today. Like, I've just eaten the whole thing in like a blind, I didn't even realise I'd done it, because it can just become so automatic. I was like, I've just eaten this whole thing.
How long did it take you to make it?
Like about 40 minutes.
Oh my gosh.
Because it's like a process of like making it, cooking it, cooling it, and then slicing it and stuff. I'm like, I've just ate this whole thing. Like, what? I need that. Like today, and it was like eat out to help out as well, so we're busy every single day. Every like part of it counted. And then I think, that was a really, really low point. And I remember in the staff toilets, sort of, because it was only like not the staff toilets, like the men's changing room at my old job. It was like one toilet. And I used to work with this Muslim guy who used to like go in there to pray. And I remember I must have done it around the time he was in after me. I was like, he's going to smell the sick. He's going to smell the sick. He's going to know. And I'm like, oh my God. And I'm like, now I've got to make this thing again now.
Yeah. And sitting with that shame, I think that can be really, that again is another layer. Same with OCD. You know, we do really, from the outside, quite strange looking behaviours. When we've got OCD, we might tap our face like that. And, you know, things like that can feel shameful and feel embarrassing. And I think that can be another layer on top of what makes these disorders really sad and really quite difficult to navigate. I know for me in the end what it came down to was I got to a place where I kind of made a deal with myself, and I suppose this is where I came away from the all or nothing binge restrict cycle, and I think I just came to a deal where I was like, right, Ferne, if you're going to recover, you are going to be maybe a stone heavier than this critical part of you really, really wants you to be. But what is the trade-off? Yes, you might be heavier than what you would like and what this critical voice tells you, but what are you getting in return? So actually, you don't have to feel ashamed anymore. You don't have to be hiding. You're not going to spend a load of money on food. You're not going to be obsessed about this thing constantly. You're going to get your life back. And I think for me, it was about making that deal with myself to be like, do you know what? This is really hard, but I'm going to meet myself in the middle here. And it was the best thing I ever did. And I've not even looked back since. And I think, again, coming back to the OCD, when we're in it, we feel like, I can't imagine a life without this thing.
How can you though if you've not had that
experience?
Exactly.
You're like, I can never get over this. This is how it's always going to be. And then if you just give it your all and fast forward 6 months, you know, you can look back. And you might not be at the end of it, but you can see progress and hope and be like, oh my gosh, I don't have to stay like this. I don't have to stay stuck.
Yeah, definitely. Sorry, I just saw that flash up. Is it okay?
I think it's okay. It says that we need to charge the battery, so we might need to unplug.
Oh, okay.
We might need to unplug our mics, maybe.
Maybe it still looks like it's got a little bit more.
What do you think?
What
Do
is
you
it?
reckon?
Hover over it? No, the battery icon in the bottom.
Yeah, I just worry that it might knock us
still got
off
50.
the live. Okay. Hopefully
It's still got quite a lot. Yeah,
we're
it's like
still on
60 odd.
Okay, all right then. Hopefully the laptop doesn't go.
I've got a point that I was like, I think that.
Go on.
As I was like reflecting on it, and I think a lot of people that struggle with eating disorders can relate to this. Is now I was a chef when I was trying to recover, but you don't necessarily have to be a chef to enjoy and be passionate about food. One of the hardest things for me was if it was Easter or if it was Christmas or if it was an event like I'm going to miss out on this opportunity to have this thing and it's going to go and I'm never going to get to experience it. And I really, really wanted it. And I felt like I was depriving myself of it. But sort of relating it to the sort of anxiety and OCD side, you think about intrusive thoughts. And one of the biggest things for me, that kept me stuck was telling myself, you can't have that. So if I'm walking down the snack aisle, you can't have any of this. Don't look at it, you can't have any of it. And that just made it a thing, a bigger and a bigger thing. And I think about anxiety and OCD, why do thoughts get stuck? It's because you want to get rid of them and push, I can't have that thought.
Or that sensation or anything.
Exactly. So as a result, actually you're going to have more of that, aren't you? And that heightened, I can't have this stuff. Oh my God, every time I go into a shop, every time I go somewhere, every time I see an advert on TV, it's like, oh my God, this thing that I hate has got, it's become a thing, it's become an obsession, do you know what I mean?
And that in and of itself is why diets don't work.
Exactly.
Isn't it? Because you restrict, and the more you say, I can't have, and you push down, the more it comes back up. It's like trying to push a beach ball underwater. You're going to push it and push it and push it, but it's going to pop back up. And that's the same with OCD, isn't it?
Yeah, it's so paradoxical as well, because when you were saying a minute ago, like, oh, what helped us get better? And I was just thinking, that was a big one for me, telling myself I couldn't have that stuff.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And actually, and that's what made it feel like an addiction. I was like, oh, I'm doing something naughty. And like, it was an element of excitement almost to it, but also the guilt and the shame. One of the biggest things that has helped me is literally saying to myself, I can have it if I want it.
Yeah,
now I just don't
100%.
want to.
Yeah, I can have ice cream if I fancy it, and I can have. But I think for me personally, with my history, I know you as well, with the binge eating, it's about being mindful of not going from restriction. I cannot have to free for all. I can have whatever I want whenever I want it, because then that falls into binge eating. So it is about I talk about this in my client work a lot, actually, especially with the eating disorder stuff. It's about sitting in that grey area, somewhere in the middle. So not all or nothing. It's like, can I practice being somewhere in the middle, not perfectionist one way or another? Can I just be somewhere there? Yeah,
definitely. And that takes time though, doesn't it? And you may find, if you've been restricting yourself of something for so long, you may find that you do go a little bit more over to that side, but then it's a balance, isn't it? Like, you're still finding out that balance. You 100%. Have been the only one on the seesaw for the longest time, and now you're letting another side, you know what I mean? It's probably gonna take a little bit to even out. And I think it's really important to, right now, if you are struggling with like restriction and stuff, that choice has been taken away from you. Give yourself that choice back, but then also try and make a more informed choice that is more in line with who you are and what you want for yourself.
Yeah, I think that's fair. What do you think, because I've got something that I think would be helpful to share, but, you know, pitfalls that people fall into when they're trying to recover. One thing I'd like to talk about is clothes. I know something that I've experienced and something I see a lot of my clients experience is there's something about, and I guess that's maybe a bit of OCD as well, the hoarding of clothes that no longer fit. So for example, when people are trying to recover from restriction or maybe some bulimia or, you know, whatever, they will hoard on to clothes that used to fit just in case they fit me again. Or even bigger clothes. Well, I'm going to keep hold of those just in case I fall back into my binging. And I think that is, when we do that, I suppose it doesn't show a level of trust in ourselves that actually we are working towards being a better version of ourselves and not engaging in disordered behaviours. Like, what, you know, say if you was trying to quit smoking and you was like, well,
I'll just keep that pack there.
I'll just keep that lighter. I'll just keep that pack just in case.
That one stashed somewhere in like a wallet or something.
Just in case I need it.
Yeah, exactly. And I think, God, I relate to that a lot. And I always, because sometimes, and I see this a lot, again, relating it to the anxiety and OCD work, people make associations with things and places, either good associations or bad associations. And I remember I had a specific t-shirt that I had like this white t-shirt that fit me really well when I was at my like leanest, lowest weight. It fit me really well and I felt good in it, and I felt confident. And then I slowly didn't fit in that t-shirt anymore, but then I'd always like keep it because I had this positive association. I'm like, oh well, if I can get back in that t-shirt, I'll be good enough again. I'll know that I'll like have that good enough feeling. But also that was so counterproductive because I'm going to the gym 5 days a week. Like I'm gonna, my goal is to try and gain muscle, but yet I still want to fit in this like small slim fit shirt. Like,
what do you think that was about? Because obviously when you did fit in that slim fit shirt, you weren't well, but yet you was like, I need to keep hold of this.
And again, I think a lot of people with OCD can relate to this, chasing that, how I felt in that shirt, even if it was just for a split second in the mirror. I feel like I look
relief.
Good. Yeah, and then I'd be like, right, you need to go. Probably in that moment, in that moment, it would have been right on your walk. Right, restrict your calories, you need to go more. You know what I mean?
100%.
And then it was like, it felt like I was, I don't know, worthy or good enough if I fit in that t-shirt. The frustrating thing for me now is that I consider myself recovered from an eating disorder. I don't struggle with it at all. The frustrating thing for me now is I still fluctuate. And it is well annoying. You know what I mean? But I accept that is just normal. Like, I go to the gym, I sometimes eat a little bit more, sometimes I eat a little bit less, you know.
The seasons, like literally the seasons. And I think that is difficult. And I know you say your natural emotion is annoyance. And I suppose when obviously we, all of us are working on accepting uncertainty, weight is something, and body image, and the size that we are, and how our face looks, and you know, all of those things are going to fluctuate up and down, whether it's Christmas, whether it's summer, and naturally you just spend more time outside. And I think people with anxiety struggle with not having certainty and not having, well, this is how I am and this is how I always am.
Yeah.
Whereas we're always going to change, always going to change.
Wanting to be that like rigid version of themselves, and it's like, well, if I know that I am that sort of defined version of myself, that's it, I'll have achieved certainty.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? And that's it, and I feel safe with that, whereas actually life's going to happen. You see that a lot with people who are like, oh, I want to go back to the old me. If I can just go back to that certain version of myself, the old me, it's like, okay, even if you take out what you're going through, if you never started to struggle with an anxiety disorder, that version of you was still always going to grow and change and learn, you know, through experience.
You were going to become a mum at some point. Yeah. You were going to lose your dad at some point. You were going to go through life events that would make you shift and would make you change.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Saying all this, like, I've literally not even checked. I know we've been doing this podcast. I've not even checked how I look in the camera, which I think is it. Honestly, I've not even checked. I've just been like, oh, does my t-shirt feel like it's digging in me? And like, oh, how does it look and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I don't even care.
Yeah, because it's not in your awareness.
Yeah.
Same as when you're recovering from a visual obsession. You're not checking, you're not looking anymore.
Yeah.
Peace.
I noticed that.
How nice is that?
I noticed that in the park before. Sat down, I was like, oh my God, that's a big floater. I was like, don't start. No, that was yesterday. Today, I was probably laid down for about 10 minutes. I was like, oh yeah, do you remember when you had that thought yesterday? Yeah. Do you know what I mean? The more willing you are to have it, the less you experience it.
That's so true, 100%. Okay. Well, we're coming up. We're coming up towards the end-ish. We've got about 20 minutes left. So maybe now could be a good time to do a Q&A if you want to. So I'll just move that little timer over here.
Do I use this one?
Yeah, you can do. We're going to do like a question and answer session now. So if anybody has any questions, or if you have any comments or anything that you'd like to share even about your own experience of disordered eating, do feel free. We did allocate a bit of time so that we could answer some things here towards the end now.
We'll keep an eye out.
Yeah, we'll keep an eye out for that. Sure. Yeah, of course, absolutely. We'll just wait on that. I'm going to have a little drink. Feel like I've not stopped.
I'm glad we did this. I feel like our morning coffees could be a full podcast, couldn't they? But we just never set the camera up.
Yeah, 100%. I'm going to put that down there.
God, that's flown by, hasn't it? 40 minutes.
Yeah, definitely. While we wait, because I'm sure some questions will come, maybe it could be good to talk about what you think. Is there a difference between an eating disorder, an OCD and anxiety?
I think they share a lot of similarities, don't they? And I think they can be quite obsessive and compulsive in nature. I'll be honest with you, I don't actually know. If I'm just being I don't actually know what is the, definition and, I think, there can be a lot of overlap, can't there? I think you can absolutely have one without the other.
Yeah. In my opinion, I think it is just how it presents itself.
Yeah.
I think it's one way of just trying to numb whatever it is that's going on, in the same way some people might turn to drugs or cigarettes or, a different obsession, porn even. Whereas people with eating disorders, it is about food and that's just what they use. Yeah,
definitely. And I remember when training at metacognitive therapy thing, like it's unhelpful coping mechanisms. Like I remember eating disorders being put under the umbrella of that as well.
Yeah, definitely. That's all it was for me. I think that's all it was. And it's interesting, once I've really started doing this work on anxiety, that eating stuff for me doesn't even pop up anymore now.
Really? That's good.
Yeah, 100%. I feel confident, I think, in it now. And when I work with my clients, I would use the exact same approaches when it comes to helping eating disorder recovery than anxiety recovery. It's just about that, not giving in to those urges and those compulsions.
Yeah, definitely. And that's so hard to do, though, isn't it?
Really hard. Really hard to do.
God, I remember one of the biggest wins I celebrated for myself was having a small yogurt like an hour after my tea, because I used to tell myself, right, once you've had your tea, that's it, you don't eat for the rest of the night, because you need to be you need to get it out of your system, and it needs to have digested by the time you weigh yourself tomorrow, because you need that perfectionism, you need the scale to have gone down. I remember giving myself the permission to eat a yogurt at like 9 o'clock or something.
Yeah, and that huge.
That felt like my head was on fire when I was doing that.
But you did it anyway.
Yeah.
But you did it anyway, which is amazing.
Yeah.
And I think it is about just continuing doing those hard things. Okay. Well, I'm going to say hello, because I can see that we've got quite a few new people who have joined us here. I feel like over the course of the live, we've had quite a lot of people coming along. So yeah, hi everybody. But yeah, just so you know, if you've only just popped along, we're ready now. If anyone does have, if you don't have any questions, that's totally fine. We can wrap it up sooner. But if anyone does have any questions or anything that they would like to ask us about, whether it is about eating disorders or how it links to anxiety, or if you have any questions for us as well about what it was like for us, yeah, more than happy to answer any questions that might come up. Gosh, we've had 86 people watching this live now. Yeah, it is 100%, and 175 likes, I think, which is really cool.
I don't feel like we do this enough, do we?
No, we don't. We should do more, especially now that we've figured out how to do it with a laptop.
Yeah, it's good that your batteries lasted as well.
I may, thanks Lara for the like. I may pop into maybe the chat or something and let people know that we're ready to take questions now. So available for Q&A now. But yeah, if we don't get anything in the next 5 minutes, that's totally fine. We can move on. Maybe something while we're waiting, I think something that I think could be good to talk about is where it came from in the first place, like my beliefs around body image. I know something I'm mindful of with your little girl is to not pass on body image stuff. And that's really, I think that's really, really important not to do. I know my mum, I'm sure she's not going to be watching this, my mum would often, oh hi Lara, yeah, we're good, thank you, we're good. We've just been doing, I know I just saw you join, but we've just been doing a live, haven't we, talking about our experiences of eating disorders. And yeah, if anyone wants to ask any questions about that, or, you know, talk about their own experiences, I'm more than happy to help. But yeah, so with my mum, I know she would often always be on a diet, always be, oh, look at my top and look at this, and always pulling her attention inwards on how she looked. She was a big feeder. She'd always be bringing food. Like, oh, do you want a biscuit? Do you want this? Do you want this? Do you want that? And there would never be, I don't know, I never learned to eat intuitively and just listen to my own sense of hunger. But yeah, big stress on body image and the way that you looked, and cellulite, I remember that being a word in our house. Yeah, like, oh, cellulite, and, you know, your legs and this and that. And yeah, there would just often be attention drawn to, especially girls, like even if you was out and, oh, have you seen her? Oh, look at her in that. And, you know, there was always something, or if you was watching telly, like, oh, that doesn't suit her, that doesn't look right on her. And I think, unfortunately, I just grew up learning that the way that you look, especially just your size in particular, is important. And yeah, I think that it's really sad that that was such a strong message for me, even from being very, very small. I can still remember that. Yeah, so I know that was difficult for me, but I don't think the message was consistent, because it was like, you're too big, here's some cake. You're too big, here's some cake. And it was very confusing. So I know that was a big part of what, I suppose, maybe planted the seed for me with my eating disorder. What about you?
Yeah, I was just thinking about what you're saying. I mean, that's probably why you consciously try not to pass it on to. I think for me, I don't have a clear. I can't remember loads of people being on diets in my house. No, I can't. That's what's so strange, because it was never really... My mum was a feeder. Like, really bad. My mum was a feeder. I remember, the only thing I ever kind of remember in that realm was my dad would... But again, this isn't a message I ever took on, but my dad would always be like, oh, this is good for you, or this isn't. And I remember he had this thing, maybe he was just like quite susceptible to what was like fashionable and in the news at that time. Like there was Atkins, Slim Fast, like not that he ever did any of these things, but I remember he had a big thing around, what was it, saturated fats. Oh, you need to look out for saturated fats and all this sort of stuff. Like, yeah.
I remember that being a thing.
Go and eat a full bag of Brazil nuts because it's healthy fats, but it's like also 1,000 calories a bag. Do you know what I mean? But as long as it's not saturated fats, just have what you want. Yeah. But then I think it came from that self-improvement world, because I came from being overweight, and like, yeah, sometimes people would like say comments that would be quite hurtful, but then bloody hell, like for a guy Taylor's oldest time, break up, see you at the gym. Do you know what I mean? Like that's what it was. And then it can quickly fall into, I think it was just it was like the perfect mix of that, and then throw in lockdown. Everyone's at home on their phones more. I don't have my job anymore to go to. Yeah, what else can I do? Yeah. Give me something to do. Okay, I'll work on myself. I'll, watch videos about it. And, you've got your David Goggins and all those sort of people.
It's toxic. It becomes toxic.
It can be, it can be quite toxic.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that's where it came from more than anything. I don't think I ever got it directly from people. If anything, people were telling me, you don't need to keep doing this. But I was like, no, I've got to.
Yeah.
I've got to keep doing it. If anything, like, to be fair,
it came from you.
Yeah, it came from me. I can't really say, oh, I remember seeing it from someone, apart from like randomers online, out of content that I chose to watch. Yeah. No one forced me to do that.
Yeah, fair enough. Yeah, I know for me, definitely it was about childhood stuff. I think it was definitely about the media as well, like watching America's Next Top Model on telly. Oh, yeah. I remember that being a thing. My best friend when I was a kid, obviously she went, I say obviously, but she went through an eating disorder, and that was hard. But yeah, I think I was just impressionable as a kid, as I think many people are. And what starts as a diet can quickly become something more sinister.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. Slippery slope.
Very slippery slope. Cool. Okay. All right then. Well, it's been really nice to do this live today. And I know what I did say if anyone has any questions, but it's obviously fine if you don't have anything. I think this is a topic that maybe the people who come along are actually struggling with that, and they might just want to learn about eating disorders, which is absolutely fine as well. Yeah. Okay. All right then. Well, thank you everyone for coming along.
Thank you very much.
We've really enjoyed doing this live today, and we'll continue to do more about different topics, won't we, going forwards? But yeah, okay. All right then. Well, thank you for coming along, guys, and we will upload this. I know I've got somebody here in particular who wants to see this live, and they couldn't make it today, so we will put this on our YouTube channel as well, won't we? Yeah. Okay. All right then. Thank you, everyone. We'll see you later.
See you.